One week before his tragic end, rising Hollywood star James Dean met actor Alec Guinness outside a Los Angeles restaurant. Dean eagerly showed off his new Porsche 550 Spyder, a low-slung silver beauty he'd nicknamed Little Bastard. Guinness, however, recoiled. He later wrote in his diary a chilling premonition. The sports car looked sinister to me. I heard myself saying in a voice I could hardly recognize, "Please never get in it. If you get in that car, you would be found dead in it by this time next week." Dean just laughed off the warning. 7 days later, that ominous prophecy came true. On September 30, 1955, James Dean was dead, his life cut short behind the wheel of Little Bastard. But in many ways, this is where the legend truly begins. The legend of a cursed car that would continue to leave a trail of death and mystery long after its famous owner was gone. James Dean was the ultimate 1950s rebel, a talented actor and a speed enthusiast off screen. Fresh from filming Giant, the 24-year-old indulged his need for speed by purchasing a racing machine, a Porsche 550 Spyder. He bought the car on September 21, 1955, and owned it for just 9 days. This Porsche was temptation on wheels, one of only 90 ever made, capable of reaching 143 miles per hour in an era where few cars could. Built with an ultralight aluminum body, it was dangerously fragile. Even a modest collision could prove fatal. Dean had the race number 130 painted on the doors and the name Little Bastard scrawled on the back, reflecting his cheeky defiance. Friends noticed the car's menacing aura, but Dean was in love. He even filmed a short public service announcement about safe driving shortly before his death. In it, with eerie irony, he had lived, "Take it easy driving. The life you might save might be mine." A wry smile on his face. Less than 2 weeks later, that very Porsche would become the instrument of his doom. On the afternoon of September 30, 1955, Dean set out for a sports car race in Salinas, California, with his mechanic Rolf Wuderich in the passenger seat. They decided to drive the Porsche to get a feel for it, instead of towing it on a trailer. Around 5:45 p.m., as the light began to fade on Route 466, a 23-year-old student named Donald Turnipseed approached in a 1950 Ford Tudor. At an intersection near the small town of Shalom, Turnipseed unexpectedly turned left across Dean's lane. Dean, likely cruising at about 85 miles per hour, had no time to avoid impact. The silver Spyder slammed into the Ford, almost head-on. The force of the crash sent the heavier Ford skidding 40 feet down the road and tore the Porsche to pieces. The tiny roadster's frame crumpled like foil. Wuderich was thrown clear of the car, severely injured, while James Dean remained trapped in the wreck. Not long after, the rising film icon was pronounced dead on arrival at a nearby hospital at 6:20 p.m. The world lost a legend that day. Yet, in the darkness of that twisted wreck, a darker legend was born. In the aftermath, Dean's bracket Porsche was declared a total loss by the insurance company. Most assumed the tale ended there, a fast car in a tragic accident. But Little Bastard seemed unwilling to fade into obscurity. The smashed Spyder was sold to a salvage yard in Burbank, and that's when whispers of a curse truly began. A fellow racer and friend of Dean's, Dr. William Esherick, bought the wreck for parts. Esherick pulled Porsche's engine and installed it in his Lotus 9 race car, and he sold or lent other components to another racing doctor, Troy Lee McHenry. Both men were experienced racers. They knew their machines. Yet, in October 1956, just 13 months after Dean's crash, Esherick and McHenry found themselves on the starting grid of a race at Pomona. Unbeknownst to them, they were about to fuel the legend of Little Bastard's curse. During the race, a string of freak accidents unfolded. Esherick lost control of his Lotus, which had Dean's engine, and crashed. He was hurt, but survived. In a far more uncanny twist, Troy McHenry, driving a car outfitted with Little Bastard's suspension parts, also wrecked. McHenry's vehicle suddenly veered off track and struck a tree. It was the only tree standing near the course, as if fate had singled it out. Tragically, McHenry did not survive the collision. Two crashes, one fatality, both in cars carrying pieces of Dean's Spyder, and all in the very same race. The motorsports community was stunned. What were the odds? Murmurs of a jinx began to circulate. Perhaps the car that killed James Dean had more death to dole out. The curse of Little Bastard was gaining momentum. Ashford, recovering from his injuries, reportedly felt the coincidences were just too eerie. Was it merely bad luck, or was there something malevolent attached to the remnants of that silver Porsche? As stories spread, the wreck of Dean's car was no longer just scrap metal, it was becoming an object of dread. By now, Little Bastard's reputation for mayhem had caught the attention of George Barris, a flamboyant Hollywood car customizer. Barris, later famous for designing TV's Batmobile, claimed he purchased the mangled Spyder from the insurance company. His intention was to rebuild it, but the damage was far too severe. Sensing a publicity opportunity, Barris decided instead to exhibit the wreckage, turning tragedy into a morbid showpiece. He lent the shattered frame to the Los Angeles chapter of the National Safety Council, which put it on a traveling display as a grim warning to would-be hot rodders. From 1957 to 1959, James Dean's wreck toured car shows, movie theaters, and even bowling alleys across country, displayed with an ominous sign. This is James Dean's dead car. Parents pointed it out to wide-eyed teenagers as a cautionary tale. But if the intent was to save lives, the cursed car had other ideas. According to Barris and numerous accounts, Little Bastard continued to leave chaos in its wake on the tour. In Sacramento, the Spyder's remains supposedly fell off its display platform, injuring a bystander by breaking their hip. On another occasion, the same thing happened again. The wreckage slipped and came crashing down, this time fatally crushing a man named George Barkus, who was a truck driver hired to transport the car. Imagine the horror. A man assigned to move a death car ends up killed by it. By now, the pattern was hard to ignore. Even stationary, locked in place, Little Bastard seemed to find ways to harm people. And the curse wasn't done yet. George Barris had sold two of the Porsche's badly used tires to another sports car owner. The story goes that as soon as that buyer mounted the second-hand tires on his vehicle, both tires blew out simultaneously, causing the car to careen off the road. The driver survived, but he was shaken by the inexplicable failure of both tires at the exact same moment. Yet another freak accident linked to Dean's Spyder. Whether one believed in curses or not, these incidents were piling up like a dossier of dread. Barris himself began to speak of the car in supernatural terms. In his memoirs, he claimed the Porsche gave off bad vibrations, an evil aura you could feel. He even told a tale of an opportunistic thief who tried to steal the Spyder's steering wheel one night. According to Barris, that thief slipped and broke his arm during the attempt, as if the car defended itself. Barris's exhibition of Little Bastard always drew curious crowds, and he certainly wasn't shy about amplifying the spooky stories. Some skeptics whispered that Barris was embellishing the tales for publicity. Notably, a few observers pointed out that the wreck he was showing appeared to be in better condition than it should have been, leading to speculation that not all the displayed parts were authentic. But whether the stories were truth, fiction, or a bit of both, the legend of James Dean's cursed car only grew. By the end of the 1950s, Little Bastard had a resume of terror. At least 2 deaths, numerous injuries, and the swath of destruction, all linked back to the twisted remains of that one ill-fated Porsche. In 1959, the Little Bastard embarked on what would be its final public tour, and perhaps its final act of strangeness. In March of that year, while that car's hulk was stored in a garage in Fresno, an unexplained fire broke out. Mysteriously, the blaze damaged little else beside the Porsche itself. When the smoke cleared, Little Bastard had only suffered some melted tires and singed paint, almost as if, despite the fire's fury, the curse wouldn't allow the car to be destroyed. This machine, it seemed, refused to die. Barris repaired the minor fire damage and continued to showcase the car, but the grand finale of the Spyder saga was just around the corner. In 1960, the National Safety Council tour decided to ship the wreck back to Los Angeles from a display in Florida. The Porsche was loaded into a sealed boxcar in Miami for cross-country rail transport. However, when the train arrived in LA and the boxcar was opened, surprise, the Porsche was gone, vanished into thin air. The seal on the door was still intact, reportedly, but the crate was empty. Little Bastard had simply disappeared, as if it evaporated en route. To this day, how it happened remains an unsolved mystery. Did thieves somehow spirit it away mid-transit? Was it removed earlier by persons unknown? Or, as some fanciful minds wondered, did the cursed car ghost itself away to continue its dark work elsewhere? George Barris, even the showman, hinted that the story might not be over. Some skeptics even suspect he concocted the disappearance to keep the car's mystique alive. Regardless, the whereabouts of James Dean's Porsche have been unknown for over 60 years. It's as if the curse that clung to the car ensured that it would never become an idle museum relic. The legend would remain alive, unresolved. Over the decades, there have been tantalizing leads and claims. In 2005, for example, an Illinois museum offered a $1 million reward for credible information on the missing Spyder. Tips poured in. One man even claimed he saw his father hide the wreck behind a false wall in a Washington state building as a child. That man reportedly passed a polygraph test, and for a moment, hopes ran high that Little Bastard might be found. But when investigators followed the clues, they hit a dead end. The alleged hiding place had been long since demolished. The fate of the Porsche remains a puzzle with no final piece. Some say it was quietly scraped, others believe it's stashed away in a collector's secret bunker, and a few imaginative souls think the car might have been swallowed by the supernatural forces it harbored. But this day, the lost wreck of James Dean's Porsche is a legend unto itself. The treasure at the end of a dark rainbow that conspiracy theorists, historians, and treasure hunters still talk about. Remarkably, a small part of Little Bastard resurfaced in recent years, offering a tangible link to the past. In 2020, a Porsche enthusiast in Massachusetts discovered an old wooden crate tucked away under a Porsche. Inside it lay a grime-coated mechanical assembly, the transaxle from James Dean's long-lost Spyder. Its serial numbers and provenance checked out, identifying it as an authentic piece of the cursed car. After being hidden for decades, this sole survivor was put up for auction. In 2021, it sold for a staggering $382,000, proving that the legend of James Dean's Porsche still commands a hefty premium. Fittingly, the buyer was Zach Bagans, a celebrity paranormal investigator who hosts ghost adventures. He placed the transaxle on display in his haunted museum in Las Vegas, treating it like a relic with an ominous aura. Visitors can now gaze upon this rusty chunk of metal, imagining the beautiful sports car it once belonged to, and pondering the curse that allegedly traveled with it. It's as close as anyone can come to Little Bastard today. Yet, aside from that transaxle, the rest of the car remains missing. The mystery endures, undimmed by time. The story of James Dean's cursed car has become Hollywood's lore, a real-life horror tale whispered by car buffs and Tinseltown historians alike. It's been the subject of books, documentaries, and TV reenactments. But is the curse real? That's the question that keeps people fascinated. On one hand, the facts read like the plot of a paranormal thriller, a prophetic warning ignored, an untimely death, and then an uncanny string of disasters trailing the wreckage for years. Too many awful coincidences to chalk up as random chance, say true believers. On the other hand, skeptics point out that some cursed stories came from George Barris, who had a knack for showmanship and may have embellished the truth. Perhaps the tale grew taller with each retelling. Maybe Little Bastard was just an ordinary car that happened to fall into the wrong hands at the wrong times. In the end, whether you believe in the curse of James Dean's car or not, the legend has taken on a life of its own, much like James Dean himself, who remains an icon of youthful rebellion and tragedy. The cursed car story taps into a fascination with the macabre and the unexplained, reminding us that some stories never die as long as people keep sharing them. Was James Dean's Porsche truly cursed, or were these events mere coincidence and hype? The truth behind the legend may never be fully known, and perhaps that's what keeps us hooked. After all, a good mystery is irresistible, especially one tied to a cultural icon frozen in eternal youth. Now, it's your turn to weigh in. What do you think happened to Little Bastard? Was there a curse, or just a series of unfortunate events? Let us know your theories and feelings in the comments. James Dean's cursed car continues to echo through history, and we'd love to hear your take on this enduring enigma. If you enjoyed this deep dive into a real life Hollywood mystery, consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. We have many more intriguing stories and legends to explore, and you won't want to miss them. Until next time, stay curious and drive safe, because as James Dean himself warned, the life you save might be mine.